Good evening. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Professor. How are you?
Good.
Good evening, teacher. Classmates, how are
Hi,
you?
good evening. Hi.
Well, we'll share 2 months for theoretical linguistics.
Nice to see you again, ma'am.
Thank you. Um, well, let's wait. Let's wait 2 minutes more for your classmates to join.
Hi, good evening, everyone.
Hey,
Good
This is
Fernando.
Fernando reporting from home.
Okay.
Fernando, I was reading your introduction, and you were an actor, or you're still an actor?
I am an actor.
Oh, I thought, yeah, you look like Brad Pitt a little. Yeah,
Look what?
like
Brad Pitt?
Pitt.
No, you look like Brad Pitt. With no hair, but Brad Pitt.
Wow, Fernando. Okay, cool. But are you doing it here in Bogota, or?
Yeah, I live in Bogota. That's right.
No, okay.
I work in the serial Bolivar. Have you seen it? Have you watched it?
To be honest, Fernando, no.
Well, you can watch it in Netflix. Tonight you can start.
No, Fernando, I have a lot of work, man. I'm doing virtual classrooms, BCB,
Okay.
and it's been amazing every day connected to the computer from 6:30 all the way to 3:30 p.m. So it's
Oh my
been hectic. Yeah, yeah.
God. Okay. When in your free time someday.
Plus, I have my two babies, so
Okay.
yeah.
That's hard. It's not
So,
easy. I have a 7 years old kid, and we have homework from school online, of course.
and it's tougher, right? It's more complicated.
Yeah. So you have to stay with him, stay by, and I'm helping with the homework every day.
Uh,
So you know.
and what
But
grade is he
anyway,
in, Fernando?
sorry,
What grade is your son in?
it's the second grade, primary.
Primary. Okay.
Yeah, here in Bogota. So he's born here in Colombia. He's Colombian.
Okay. All right. Cool.
He's doing well actually. Thanks.
Okay.
So let's wait.
Well, I think we can start. Well, this is a theoretical uh, class. It's based on theory, and the idea is to review concepts connected to linguistics, which is a big branch, or a big field that has different branches. And we will basically study semantics and pragmatics. But you see there on the screen that there are different branches of linguistics: phonetics, phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics, right? And you have been studying some of those uh, sub areas of linguistics. And I would like you to start reviewing, or just mention what you remember about those ones that you have already studied in other courses. So, for example, what do phonetics study, or what does phonology study, and morphology and syntax?
I'm not sure if I remember well, but I think phonetics is the part that studies like the sounds, uh, like how sounds are created. So yeah, so it divides like the sounds in different ways depending on the parts of the body that are being involved in producing the sound. So
Yeah.
I don't remember right now all the topics, but all the terms. But I mean, like if the tongue goes in a certain way. It's
This,
way
yes,
with the
Andres.
teeth,
This
and that.
actually, I'm sorry, Andres. This actually brings me memories when I used to work at the mayor because this was a very strong point in phonetics. So we had to focus where the tongue was placed, if it was voiceless or voiced, if the vocal cords vibrated, if you put your tongue against the bilingual. Well, there was many things about this phonetics, and I think it's very important for students to have this at a very early age.
Okay, good. And what about phonology and syntax and morphology?
Andres, now you can talk.
Um, I don't remember.
That was a long time ago, right? That was theoretical linguistic one with
No, but
Professor Haido, no?
I don't remember a lot of phonology. I do remember of I think morphology is how you create words. Yeah, so it's like I remember that it has
Oh,
to
I
do
remember that tree. Yeah.
with the yeah, like with
Apology talks about
the parts of the word, how the words are formed. So the roots and the
Morphemes.
thingies and morphemes.
Exactly.
Yeah, the composition of words.
Okay. And phonology, so it has to do with rhyme, blending, alliteration, syllable segmentation.
Ah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
the sound.
It's how the phonics works within the actual speech context, no,
Exactly.
of a certain language.
Right. And what about syntax?
Syntax is how sentences are created. So that those are the syntax trees that we did, in which you identify which is
Yeah. The
the
structure, like.
which is the what role is each word playing within the verb, the sentence, excuse me, and how the sentence are constructed. Like yeah, what you're showing. So you divide it in verb phrase, noun phrase, and then each one of them have the prepositions and the articles and whatnot, and the verb that is the main part. And yeah, we did do the trees, the little trees.
Okay, sorry. We work that with students, right? We need to tell them what is the correct order of words to create a sentence in English. We need to guide them so they know how to create words by adding suffixes or prefixes. We need to help.
Affixes. Can we
Exactly.
Professor, can we call that like parts of speech too?
That's part of the speech, yes.
Okay.
So we need to also guide them to let them know how to pronounce words. So that's part of phonetics. We all need to, we need to know about linguistics because we are going to teach a language as a whole, right? So now we are going to study semantics. Semantics, which is about meaning,
Meaning.
The
right?
study of meaning. Yes,
The
ma'am.
study of meaning of words.
The study of
Line.
meaning, exactly. So we
And
have
it's not easy to understand this. It's a bit complex.
Oh,
it
yeah.
is not because it's about trying to find out patterns
Yes,
that are
ma'am. Yes.
in all the languages and that give us explanations on how people communicate and make and understand each other. And so we will see that a misunderstanding in communication can emerge because there are problems in semantics. So somebody
Exactly.
understands another thing. So, well, you see, for example, here, these two are, this one utters the word dog, and what each one has as
Different
an
thing.
image in their mind is a different thing. But they share some characteristics. So that is something that semantics studies.
Can we call that is sense in that case?
Could you repeat?
Is that sense?
Yes, sense is what is the
Okay.
image that we have in our minds connected to a word. That is
Exactly.
sense. And a referent is actually the real thing that we see on the street.
Exactly.
That we say, okay, that is a dog. That is the referent, or the one that we are pointing at or talking
Is a
about
referent.
is the referent. But the one that we have in our mind is called the sense.
A sense. Okay. That I understood. So now I'm happy now. Okay.
Okay. Now look at the second image. What do you remember about pragmatics? This second image is more connected to pragmatics, which is also connected to meaning.
Yeah.
It's how well, precisely about that image. It's a date. It's a word that in two different contexts can mean two different things.
Yes, very
Obviously,
good.
a date as a going out with someone, and a date as I think it's
The month?
the semilla
Exactly. That fruit.
of how do you say semilla?
No, it's
As
the
the
fruit.
seed.
Is
There's a fruit.
Ah,
Yeah.
okay, a
It
fruit.
is a fruit.
Okay.
Right. So they are thinking about, or they are for each one, what is happening means something different. So
Yeah.
this one here thinks that is a date, and this one
He's the
here,
boy. The boy thinks it's a date. Yeah, that's the problem.
I don't know. This one here thinks that they are talking about the fruit they are eating, and not about the situation. So as Andres Lopez just mentioned, it depends on the context. The context here is what is around. It's not just the words or what each word means, what each person has in the mind about the words, but what is around, that is the context, and what each person means by saying a word. Let's see other example of here. So here is about the use of the word awesome. So three different couples that uttered the word awesome, but for the three of them, also means something different.
Okay, cool. You look hot, cold, and wild. Okay.
See, so for they are not exactly saying you look hot, or this beer is cold, or this weather is mild, but they are using the word awesome to express that they like what is happening or what they are talking about. So in
Right.
that way, in that example, the word awesome has a different meaning for each one, although it is the same word, but according to what is happening, the context, and the person who is uttering the sentence, the meaning is different.
It depends the context. Yes, teacher.
Exactly. So what is different in pragmatics compared to semantics is that pragmatics takes into account the context and the person, while semantics don't take into account those two things, but just the word and the meaning as it is found in the dictionary, and
Okay. Yeah.
without any context, just what it is, what we find in the dictionary, that is the common understanding and meaning for all of us about a word. Yes, so you see here other example in this cartoon about pragmatics. So you
When
have,
you say, sorry, when
yes,
you talk about context, you talk also about the way they say things. I mean, the tone they use, the subtext maybe in what you're talking, what you're saying. I
yes,
mean,
right.
you
So
take into account all of that, or just the surrounding. I mean,
all of that, you
all of
can
that.
you can utter a word using a different intonation and
Exactly.
in meaning the opposite thing of what the word usually means.
Exactly. So the other person may misunderstood what you're saying. You never know.
Exactly. So those
That's
are causes of misunderstanding.
uh-huh.
So think about how you communicate with the people you talked a lot with. So your family members, the
That happens to me,
workers.
Professor, with my wife sometimes.
Yeah,
I tell her,
if you
I
are
tell her something
ironic,
and she misunderstands me, so we
so
we
you
have
are
much.
ironic. If you use irony, they might misunderstand you.
Exactly.
Exactly. If you don't use the word as it should be, also as by using the meaning that we have in the dictionary, we can
Hmm.
miscommunicate something.
Queda uno.
We can cause misunderstanding,
Exactly.
right?
Yeah.
But
Yes.
usually with the people we know a lot, friends and family members, we don't need to say much so they understand what we say. Just because of a gesture or because the intonation that we use, they know us a lot, so they know if we are being ironic or if we are just being serious or if we are telling a joke or if what we want to mean usually.
Uh-huh.
Okay, questions so far? All right, so let's move. I mentioned that semantics don't take into account context, but we will study first the meaning of words. That is, the sub area is lexical semantics, the grammar, that is grammatical semantics. So if we other words in in an order that is different to the one that the English has as a rule, so that's gonna be wrong and it's gonna be meaningless, as colorless green ideas speak furiously.
Oh yeah. So yeah.
You
That's how
remember
I
that
that's how
example?
I write.
But grammatically, it's correct.
Exactly. So the order, the syntax is okay. We have noun, we have a
Verb.
verb, and the complement or the adverb there is correct, the order, but is nonsense. So grammatical semantics deals with that. And logical semantics deals with how we make presuppositions based on what of the sentences that we have. Here we have the King of France is bold. The King of France is not bold. Is the King of France bold? If the King of France is bold, he should wear a hat in the winter. So all the sentences don't deny that there is a King of France. So we just presuppose that there is a king in France. So that's logical semantics. Those are like the three sub areas. So what you remember about lexical semantics?
Yeah, it focuses on the content of words. It studies the word meanings and word relations.
Exactly. So we need some words relations. So for example, how can we define or what is the meaning of the word dog? So we need other words that are around that one that help us to describe the animal.
Mhm.
So it's what you said, the connections of a word with the others that help us to come up with the definition and the meaning of one word.
I think that could be the classical theory, or that's different.
No, that's other thing.
Oh, okay, man, got it.
Yeah, but as Fernando mentioned, so we need the other words. We need that that mind map or that web to express that a dog is an animal that barks,
The barks is
usually
hairy, leash, slang. Okay.
exactly all that. So probably we cannot say that all dogs have 3 legs. It might happen that they have just 2 or just 3. So we need more words and we need to be more specific and give more details and so that the definition covers the whole idea of a dog to differentiate it, for example, from a cat.
Like characteristics.
Exactly. And so we need all the other words. That is lexical semantics. Good. Then we have grammatical semantics, and we talked about the order of words. So not only the order of words, but the relationship between and among them, right? So I cannot say that an idea sleep so that we have some verbs that already tell us that there is a rule, so that sleep is a verb that cannot be used with objects. Objects cannot perform that action, right? And so we have other list of verbs, for example, that cannot be used with non with people or with animals, that can only be used with objects, right? So that's what grammatical semantics tell us. Some words have restrictions in their use. Same as
Okay.
adverbs. Some adverbs cannot be used with all the verbs.
With the verbs.
Right.
So in this case, the subject is Carlos green ideas, verb, and then the complement is the adverb, correct?
Yeah,
Talking
but
about
it's,
structure.
yes, but it's telling us that the structure is okay, as we mentioned, but that the relationship between and among words is wrong, because each word has rules about the connections or the pairs that can be made in order to make sense or to express something that is meaningful.
Okay.
Yeah, here we're talking about syntax too. I mean, the composition of a sentence.
Here we say the syntax is okay, but the
Yeah,
relationship between the words is wrong.
exactly. The relation
Exactly. Yeah.
between the words and the syntax is one.
No, the syntax is okay. We say the grammatically is a
Yeah,
is a
It is
good
correct
sentence.
because it's in the order that it should be. The adjectives are where they need to be. Just as Christian said, you can identify each part of the verb, of the sentence,
Of
excuse
the
me.
sentence.
But the thing is that it doesn't it doesn't have, I mean, it doesn't make sense because ideas, because it says that ideas are, first they give colors to ideas which don't have color, and they say in the same sentence that they are colorless and green, and then ideas sleep, but ideas can sleep, and then
And they're mad.
so
but if we are writing poetry, maybe you
Exactly.
can use words with that meaning something different.
Exactly. But remember
Okay.
that semantics don't take into account the context of people and the meaning that people give to words. And when we talked about poems, is the meaning that people give to words.
Okay.
So in that case, for the area, the field of semantics is wrong. It's wrong because we are studying just what the sentence means without taking into account the context.
Okay.
Good. Now let's move to logical semantics that we already mentioned, the idea of making presuppositions based on clues or some evidence that is written there. Okay, now we have sentence, utterance, and proposition. Do you remember the difference?
utterance is when someone speaks, or like that moment in which yeah, there's someone speaks or writes, and it's just the stretch in which one person is talking until they make a stop, either by a silence or a period or whatever. That would be an utterance.
Exactly, very good, Andres. So it's when a person says something without any pause. If you pause, you have two utterances. If you say, I want to tell you, that's one utterance because I stopped. Then when I start the other sentence, that will be the second utterance. So it's just as you mentioned. Good. What about propositions and sentence?
Yeah, propositions is a statement putting forth an idea, suggestions, or plan.
Mhm.
So, so it's a part of the meaning of a sentence. Let's say that.
Yes, is exactly the meaning of the sentence, this complete sentence. So what for example, think about expressions and think about yes, expressions or idioms. So what is exactly the meaning of each sentence that it has the expression there? It's not the one that has each word, but it's the one that is expressed by the whole sentence. For example, we cannot translate this expression into English by using a word that is equal to each one of the words that we have here in the Spanish. So it's wrong to say not having hair on the tongue is not what the expression no tener pelos en la lengua means. Yes,
Mhm.
it's not exactly the meaning of each word, as you mentioned, Fernando, but it's exactly the core that the whole expression wants to mean.
Yeah. And we don't take into account the changes of accent or pitch. I mean,
Not
but
in
we
that
were
case.
talking about utterance, not in this case.
No, we are still moving in the field of just the sentence without
Uh-huh.
disregarding the person that mentions or disregarding the context, but
Uh-huh.
just what the sentence wants to express.
Mhm.
So we have here, for example, a problem when we try to translate into Spanish or into English some expressions that don't have exactly the same equivalent. Like the closest will be, I'm not going to mince my words, but it's not as funny as the expression no tener pelos en la lengua.
Yeah, and I found that those sayings in English are, they go straight to the point. It happens to me when I'm speaking in Spanish, and I think very hard just to find the right words to say, and the first thing I think of is just the saying in English because it addresses exactly what I want to say. So I found that in English it's a lot easier than in Spanish.
Well, we have both. We have expressions in both languages, but I agree with you that they go straight to the point and they are fun. So I guess if the person wants to be direct but not aggressive, but a kind of fun, can use those expressions to
Uh,
communicate.
this can even happen in the same language. If you go to Mexico, and I'm gonna say a rude word, but I think we're all pretty grown-ups here. But if you go there and say like, "Uy, no, marica," something, they're gonna be like, "What did you just tell me?" Like, yeah. So I don't know if that can also translate into the same language or that has to do with other another sub.
Well, there is a problem of pragmatics because there we are talking about the context. Saying an expression in other part of the world where Spanish is spoken, but the meaning of the words is different, or the load for them, for maybe marica is very rude, so they will like be kind of um,
Yeah, it's like a
impressed.
cultural aspect.
But in that case, it's a problem of pragmatics. Here,
Okay.
we just think about the expression without having into account who says that or where the person is when it expresses that or mentions that expression, or who listens to the expression.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying that.
All right, so we said that this is kind of difficult to translate some expressions either into Spanish or either into English because maybe we don't find the same um equivalent, something that is fun or exactly the same expression translated into the other language. So That's proposition is that finding what the person wants to say with the sentence, or what in this case not what the person but what the expression itself wants to communicate, while the utterance is what the person mentions, and the sentence is just what we know as the correct order of words and the correct relationship between and among them, so the sentence is meaningful. Good question so far. So far, I would like to ask you, why do you think it is important to study all this theory? For you that you are studying English to be English teachers, or that you are all already English teachers, but you are studying like more theory, why do you think it is important? Would you use it?
Well, I think that basically the most important thing of studying meaning and studying context and the use of words and how words are used is because, well, if we're going to teach, it's important that we actually, that we are able, one, we as people and as English speakers understand the different uses that words can have and the different uses that words can have in context and what the words actually mean and the different meanings that they could have, and also that when we're teaching it we are able to teach that to students, but also to understand what students are saying, taking into account their culture, taking into account what they know or the context in which they live in. So well, if we as teachers don't understand meaning and aren't able to identify meaning and use of words and how the words change in context, is going to be very difficult for us to teach how to speak and how to write properly.
Okay, very good. Somebody else?
Well, in a simple way, I might say that if we are teaching a language, we must understand how this language is constructed, what words mean in any context. I mean, the roots of words, how to create a sentence, what is a proposition, all of this. Because it, we are dealing with the language. We are dealing with a language, a second language, but it's a language. So we must know not all about it, but just a little bit. Yes.
Okay,
Might help for our class for teaching.
good. Somebody else?
And I don't think not just for teaching, but for ourselves, because in my case I kind of learned English, but I without thinking about this too much, you know, in fact at all. I wasn't thinking about grammatic, syntax, or whatever. I was exposed in a situation where I had just to kind of do the best as I could, and I kind of learn English as I went. But it is important to know these things, to know exactly how everything works, and that'll be easier when you're trying to teach. You know, teach the kids a good English. You know, the good way to speak English, not just empiric way. You know, like in my case, like that was my situation. I want to deliver good content to the kids, so they can have good basis for when they travel abroad and keep improving their English.
Okay.
And Professor, I want to say something. Like I don't know right now, but in the past, where I'm working now in GCB, we had language teachers that were administrators, psychologists, they were lawyers. They didn't have that background that a teacher needs. You see what I'm saying? And when time started passing, the school started to think, well, we don't need these kind of teachers. We need real teachers, and they started having these teachers that are linguistics, and the results were much better now. It's not only because you know the language, but it's the background that you really need to teach. You see?
Why do you say that it was much better? What was the difference, or
Well, it happened to me. I had friends I had, and you can tell the way they spoke. Um, they did, for example, there were questions that popped out. They didn't know how to answer them. They didn't know what the grammatical, let's say, structures were. It was very complicated, but they had excellent English skills, but they didn't know how to teach that
They couldn't answer the questions, right?
yeah
Who,
when
well, what type of students ask you those type of questions? No.
I think these questions come up in higher levels.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, teacher, I don't understand what's a simile. Teacher, what's a metaphor? Teacher, wow, what is it? What can you tell me what an adverb is? So it was a bit complicated there.
Usually adults, right? Because
Yes,
children just learn in
yeah,
a more natural way. They don't even know what an adverb is, just like Nicholas mentioned, they learn in a more natural way. So they listen, um, analyze the sentences that are used to express something, and they just say it. But adults will ask you
they
about
will.
an adverb, why the structure is that way and not the other, why the why saying green ideas is wrong or ideas sleep is wrong. So basically, by answering questions to adults that are learning in a non natural way, they will ask you questions about linguistics.
Exactly.
Could any other person who wants to add something? Why do you think consider this is important, useful to study?
Teacher, I think that this is important because for me it's the matrix matrix of the language, and I don't understand well, but it's necessary to understand to teach another person.
Okay. Andrés Lopez?
That's me, right?
Yes.
Okay. I think it's really important because, after all, that's how, in real life context, most of them informal, of course, that's how we really speak. We use all sorts of prepositions. We give double meanings to things, and understanding this gives us a much wider, like, understanding of language itself, how it works, and by studying this, we can also learn a lot about what it is that people say and what it is that they're really meaning, so that it really all sums up to not misunderstanding people and conversations. I think that's why it's really important.
Exactly. That even help us to like reflect on the way we communicate. So we try to not um, to be clear when we talk. Okay. Any other person?
Yeah, it also helps to get close to the language. I mean, going like it's like going taking the language and taking it to a laboratory to examine all the parts of a sentence, all the words, the meanings. So it's like playing with the language for us as teachers. We have the chance to play with the language, take it to the laboratory, play with it, make experiments, or with now that we are dealing with this virus, it's like this kind of playing with the language in the laboratory, because we construct sentences, we reconstruct, we take words, we study words, we study the meaning. It's not easy. I realize it's not easy, and with one course, we can take just a part of it because it's quite complex. But it helps to get close to the language, to get more familiar with it, and to be more professional.
Right, this is a lot of analysis and trying to understand and
Exactly.
mhm,
The
a lot
analysis.
of
The analysis
reflection.
was my main idea. The analysis. That's why I was talking about the laboratory playing.
Exactly. Good.
Mm.
Somebody else? Okay, so let's continue. We have reference and sense,
Mhm.
right? So we mentioned here we have a cartoon. So please read it.
Can you put it bigger?
Yes, sure.
Thank you. Yeah, perfect. Thank you. Look. No, that's funny. That was funny.
Okay, now let's look at this one here.
Have you seen?
Sense is more like in your mind, what you're thinking, correct?
But if the person is not, sense is connected, sorry, reference is connected to pragmatics.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Because in this case, the person use the word cupcake in a specific context with a specific person, while sense is connected to semantics because it's exactly the idea image that we have in our minds connected to the the definition that we find in dictionaries about a word.
So that's more like the image theory.
Exactly. The image that we have in our minds about like the definition that we have of the word.
Okay. All right.
Well, this person here is giving a different meaning to the word cupcake, but for that meaning, we have connections with the context and with a specific place, a specific situation. So reference is connected to pragmatics and sense is connected to semantics. So let's imagine this, if this person doesn't know like the way the words this one is uses to refer to his boyfriend, her
Mm-hmm.
boyfriend, so the person's gonna get lost.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, is this clear about sense and reference?
Yeah. But to be honest, I'm actually understanding it because at the beginning I couldn't. It was kind of, I don't know. I got confused a little.
Yeah, it's not easy. It's a lot of
Yeah,
reflection.
because that might be a misunderstanding because I thought that the reference was the real object, the real thing, the I mean the object of the cupcake on the left.
Mm.
But in that context, it's right. The reference is not the cupcake that you eat, but the boyfriend or the girlfriend. So no.
So we can use one word and refer to different things
Mm-hmm.
depending on the context. So that's why this one is connected to pragmatics.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah.
Other people who study this are, for example, communicators or publishers because they need to they deal with words to sell things.
Mm.
So they sell emotions, for example, publicists, and they need to study all this theory so they understand how they can communicate ideas not in a direct way.
Yeah. It's like playing with language.
like
playing with
playing
it.
with languages.
Yeah.
Okay, now in the field of semantics, we mentioned that we have to study the words as they mean in the dictionary. So we have a in English we have a lot of